So this evening, we didn't put any additional presentations, or a lot of times we do videos to show you what's going on because we had a couple of big topics that people wanted us to be talking about. So we are going to jump into the two topics that were a big concern that were raised at our last meeting as soon as we do our public participation. Joni, do we have any public participation?
I'm going to get that in 1 second.
I'll grab it.
I'm sorry.
Just remember, on public participation, it's 2 minutes at the mic. Direct yourself to the whole committee and not one individual or any specific individual. At 1.5 minutes, I'll give you a reminder, and then lastly,
We have one,
put your name and address for the record.
we have one public participation. Mr. Malley.
Mayan Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. We are the proud citizens, are grateful to all of you, and Honorable Mayor Rivera, Honorable Commissioner Raleigh, and Honorable Dr. Bergeron, and Frank McLaughlin, for your historical important task that giving our teachers, Lawrence Public Schools teachers, contract. We need to continue support our teachers. We demand of you in searching for a new superintendent, a superintendent that continues the success of turnaround plan to create a progressive school. The new superintendent needs support our teachers and their union, empower immigrant city and the parent to be active participant in our public school to grow, bring the best for our children. Family Resource Center is important gathering for our children. We need to educate our parents to be an active participant in educating our children. We need to continue have a progressive public school that create the most college-ready education for our children. We need to invite the new superintendent, continue interaction with our community, daily visit to our schools across the city. In the last month, we need to see the wave of the protest of support of the teachers union from West Virginia and Oklahoma. This is exciting news. Remember, when the teachers win contract, our city win. We are proud of our teachers union contract. Lawrence Teachers Union must know that 80,000 citizens are behind them. And let's move forward to strive to have the best public school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malley. This evening, we're going to start with our presentation on school safety. So I'm going to call up Anne-Marie Stronach and David Hernandez, Manager of School Safety. They're going to do a brief presentation to kind of give you an overview of what we cover in school safety, and then we'll open up for any comments or questions.
Good evening, members of the school committee. Thank you for having us here tonight. Very excited, a little nervous about telling you what it is that we actually do in the school safety department for the Lawrence Public Schools.
We just also want to recognize that we have Lieutenant Sean Burke, who is back with us, back as our lead SRO. So he's here also to offer any comments or questions that you might have relative to our police partnership.
That being said, I would like to start with an overview of what it is that the school safety department is and what it does. School safety department was established in 1997. Currently, the department has 32 safety officers and myself. The school department and the Lawrence Police Department have a very good working relationship. As you can see, Lieutenant Burke is here, as Dr. Bergeron mentioned a few minutes ago. He's here to support us, whether it be training or anything else that we might need. The Lawrence Police Department has assigned 3 resource officers, school resource officers. They are police officers assigned to the school district, along with one lieutenant, which obviously we mentioned Burke already. He oversees their work. The majority of the school safety officers and the SROs work when school is in session, okay? That being said, when the job of the school safety, the priorities are to provide a safe environment for all members of our school community. They do this by implementing controlled access to the schools. They make sure that the visitors have a lawful purpose for being there. They notify the proper authorities of any incidents occurring while on the property while they're on duty. They uphold the Lawrence Public Schools Code of Conduct. They prepare and maintain incident reports. They collaborate with the school resource officers, and they are also active members of the of the schools that they're assigned to, and they work with the crisis teams. Every year, at the beginning of the school year, all school safety officers attend and participate in a week-long of professional development. That professional development consists of crisis prevention intervention, which we use the word letter CPI as for short, at which point they receive certification at the end of the training. That training is basically a practical approach of managing violent behavior, okay? It focuses on the de-escalation and techniques and strategies. They're also certified in first aid, CPR, and AED. At the same time, we do an overview of the expectations from the department, which includes their responsibilities, report writings, communication, crisis management plans as well. We also take this time to invite guest speakers. In the past, we've invited SROs, other police officers from different agencies, different departments as far as drug unit, gang involvement, and so on and so forth. We've also invited juvenile law attorneys that will come in and help us understand what it is that the law requires us to do and why. We also invite members from the Lawrence Fire Department. I believe last year we had Lieutenant Mike Armano, who came in and gave us an overview as to how it is that they work with the schools, as to how do they report incidents and so on and so on. This year, we have committed Mary Cruz Laura, who is the supervisor of the Juvenile Justice Unit in the District Attorney's Office. We're hoping she can come in and give us a little insight as to what happens once they are involved in the system.
I think she'll talk a lot about how to keep them from getting involved too, is my,
Usually
knowing
does.
Mara Cruz.
Also, the school utilizes a crisis plan based on the Massachusetts Emergency Management System. This is a multi-hazard or emergency planning approach. This approach allows schools to be prepared for all types of crises, including school intruders, bomb threats, emotional crisis, fire, medical, or other unexpected or unpredictable events. School crisis plans are developed and practiced at the school level. They prepare the district and the schools to address a multitude of crises. We have provided you with 2 copies of, one is the template of what a crisis plan looks like, okay? Well, along with the information that we use, that we received from the second packet that we gave you, which help us create this plan. So if you take the time to read both, it'll give you a better understanding how it is that we are prepared to deal with any and all types of crises that we can be exposed to.
You will see that the copy of the plan you have is not the copy that we give out to every staff member or to give out to parents. We collapse the parent piece because there's some information there that we don't want to be shared publicly in the community, like our codes that we're using for calling for different incidents, because we don't want everybody that walks in the building to always understand those things, because that's our way of communicating. So we're just asking you to make sure you kind of keep that to yourself and not let it filter out to anybody.
I understand this is
We
a short
can't share this on social media?
I understand this is a short presentation, however, I hope you got the information you actually were looking for last meeting, which is pretty much telling you how we prepared, how many of us are there, and how we work.
So we will take any questions. I know there were some questions, specific questions that people had around safety, so.
Okay, I just want to start real quick, and then we'll go to Mrs. Mariano. I don't want it to go understated. Lieutenant Burke, who has been assigned to the school department, he wasn't there before, he's now, is a national expert in school safety.
Absolutely true.
That's-
You
it's a
got to
very-
start here in the Lawrence Public Schools to get into the school safety business.
And
Still utilizing a lot of the things that he brought to the department. We're still utilizing many of the things that Lieutenant Burke put in place and in terms of how we're managing school crisis to begin with. So I have to credit him for a lot of this work, background work, because he really laid the foundation for what we have in the community, which is above and beyond what our neighboring communities have. And we're very proud of this program in our schools.
And then the second piece of that is that the officers that are under Lieutenant Burke, even though Lieutenant Burke is a Lawrence High School graduate, are also Lawrence High School graduates. I think maybe one Central Catholic kid. I think one Central Catholic kid. We let them know. But these are kids from the community, they understand that they've been through Lawrence Public School System. And I didn't want to go without saying also that the school department pays for those resource officers that are assigned to the schools, but also that in the open gyms that we have in the schools, one at the Gourmet and one at the South Lawrence East School, that those officers are the same officers that are resource officers for the most part, but those are the ones that the city pays for. So there is in the after-school environment, sometimes there's some of the police officers that are extra there for support. Mrs. Mariano.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hernandez, thank you very, very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What are the hours of the school safety officers? And I'm wondering, are they assigned to the buildings when after-school programs are going on? Is there somebody there until the last child leaves the building?
For the most part, I would have to say no. Although some schools do have officers that stay to the end of their programs or their days. Depending what school we're talking about, you can have a safety officer to approximately, I want to say, 6 o'clock. However, we do have 4 safety officers assigned to the high school that they work during the second shift, which is 2 to 10. So any emergency that would come about during those times, they can also respond as well. I also like to add, there's a big difference between the school resource officers and the school safety officers. School safety officers are not police officers. Every time they encounter a crisis where they require police attention, we notify the police and we follow their lead. We don't necessarily have the same training that they do or required training that they have. So that's a big distinction that I would like to make sure that you all understand.
Is there any way in the future, when schools do have after-school programs, that there could be a school safety officer present? Could hours be staggered so that someone would be on site?
So I'd like to address that because unfortunately, that comes down to a funding issue. I've heard a lot of your questions and concerns regarding the budgeting of school safety officers. In the schools that have complexes, their hours are staggered. There's not a standard hour by contract for school safety, but the hours are staggered at different schools to cover as the maximum as we can without overtime. Obviously, we can do anything we want, but we have to be fiscally responsible in running the program as well. And so there are other mechanisms that the schools choose to use in terms of after hours. And I think that you employed some of those at your own school when you were the Leahy School principal, where you might have office staff or other program who are working that main door. But we're addressing that because we did hear loud and clear at the last meeting that there are some concerns with after-school programs and how those doors are managed. So we're working with the principals, and we're thrilled to have Sean back in the picture to help us develop some of those programs. So we realize it's a weakness, and we're going to be addressing that this year to the best of our funding ability. I mean, we could put staffing on it, but unfortunately, our hands are tied in terms of funding. We don't have the funds to do 24/7 because, as you know, our schools are open. They're open all the time. We also have school safety on the weekends, too. It's important to note that as well. And When FRC is open late, we have school safety there. So, I mean, depending on events, they may have school safety in there as well. So I just want to make sure that you're understanding that it varies.
Okay, thank you.
Why does it seem like there's always a school safety officer every time I walk in a building, even though it might be after hours?
That's what we were just
For the same
talking-
reason that we just talked about. We try to cover as much events as we can.
Right.
Big events in particular. The high school, there's always somebody there until like 10
10 o'clock
or
at
10 o'clock at night, from about 6:30 to
So-
7 on.
So if there's like an after-school program at the Gourmet, there might not be necessarily a
Depends on the size of the program. So if they have a contract with their provider that does after-school childcare, that after-school childcare is responsible for their children to be released. We don't have a safety officer staying there.
The Gilmet is a great example because they have a safety officer there till 4:30. So while they have not as many school safety officers, they have chosen to use the time to maximize their time. So they have somebody there from 6:30 in the morning till 4:30 at night. So they've maximized, while they have one officer who I do have to give a shout out to, Officer Flette. He is an excellent officer, but their coverage is longer. If you're looking at the South Lawrence East School, their coverage is until 3:30. So it varies from school to school depending on how they staff it. But big events, we're covering those events. So you're usually at the larger events that,
Stay.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for the outline for the crisis plan. I think my question is going in a slightly different direction. I appreciate that it looks like we have emergency response and crisis kind of covered. I guess my question is more about prevention, and what are the district's overarching policies around prevention? How are those preventions communicated to students, parents, teachers, and administrators, and how often are they communicated? And the reason why I asked the question is that I think part of the parent concern beyond what's happening nationwide is some of the lapses that they're seeing, and we've talked pretty frankly about, maybe there's a side door open. I think parents are concerned about how are we preventing the district from even getting into a crisis. What are those policies and procedures, and how are they communicated to the parents so that when a parent asks, for instance, myself, and then asks a teacher or asks even another student, everybody is giving the same answer? And so where can we find a uniform policy, even if there are differences between what schools have, in terms of their autonomy? What is the overarching kind of goal for the district around safety, and how do we communicate that?
so I would, that's a lot of questions rolled into one. And what I would say to you is, that is not just the responsibility of our school safety staff. That is a much broader view. And what I would say our guiding principle is our code of conduct. And I think that Officer Hernandez outlined the CPI training. So from their training, I'll let him speak to CPI, but our code of conduct, our student code of conduct, which gets sent home to every single student in the district, is evaluated at the school level and communicated when they're having those conversations at the school level as schools are interacting. But in terms of our school safety officer, I would say that CPI is our guiding, and that's the escalation. So I'll turn that part of it over, but
In terms of prevention, every school has to have a behavioral support plan. So whether they're choosing to do positive behavior intervention, which is a school-wide approach, behavioral expectations, in rewarding good behavior, catching students to being good, or if they're using something like restorative justice, where they're having circles and talking about if you did something wrong, how do you make it back up to your community? Every school has to do something in that realm, but every school gets a choice on which one it is. So we're also pushing out heavily social and emotional learning, because what we're finding is students are not coming as prepared with the basic understanding of emotions and how to articulate emotions. And some of that may be due to the fact that we're so tied to technology that there's not a lot of interaction that happens a lot of times with other people to learn some of those social skills that we may have had growing up in a different age. So those two big pieces, every school is required to be focused on developing social and emotional competencies and a positive behavioral approach. So each school should be able to articulate to you what they're doing and how they're implementing it in the classroom and throughout the building.
I appreciate that answer, but I don't know that it speaks to my question, and maybe I was inarticulate. I think the question is, how do we communicate to parents, the code of conduct is not going to cover an unauthorized intruder or somebody who comes to the school to pick up a child that they don't have authorization to pick up. So how are we communicating to parents what the policies and procedures are around those things outside of the code of conduct, outside of student behavior? We're talking about behavior.
Now I understand where you're going.
I apologize for that.
Each school sends home their opening of school packet that list all of their expectations for parents, or should list it, in terms of give them the overview of their crisis protocol by mid-September, late September, but also what are the policies for picking up children, for dismissing their child, who can dismiss, who cannot dismiss, how do you do those things, should be in their packet. Now, if you're telling me saw some shaking heads, that you're not saying that it's there, then that's something we have to tighten up, because that is where it comes from, is each building should be articulating to their parents, what are the procedures for all of these things? Similarly to make sure the door closes behind you, or things like that, so that we're all owning safety, because we say the same thing to teachers, because we know some teachers run out to their car and they do leave the door ajar so they can run back in and, don't want to go through the main door, and we've said that, and I think the high school is probably kicked out more rocks in the back doors along the parking lot because they want those doors closed. So we're constantly reminding staff, and we have to make a better effort at reminding parents, not just once at the beginning of the year, but occasionally bring it back up throughout the year.
Thank you. So in addition to the annual training that the safety officers receive, what types of training are your teachers receiving, and what types of drills are students going through in order to kind of protect themselves? Are there drills that are happening? Are there teacher trainings? And is one time a year enough for the safety officers given the national climate?
So all the schools have a monthly meeting when it comes to the crisis plans. They discuss their needs and their updates. Now with the arrival of Lieutenant Burke, we're looking to do more tabletop exercises to help do some sort of refresher course throughout the school year. We had a discussion today as to what are some of the ideas that he would like for us to consider. We're looking to meet at the end of the school year and kind of see what we experienced, what we can improve, and how we're going to implement that for the next school year. So safety is a work in progress. We got to stay focused. We got to stay on top of it. It's not something that you're just going to do once, put aside, and forget about it. We got to continue that. So we will be doing that for the upcoming year.
Schools are required to do one drill a month, whether it's a fire drill, an alternate evacuation drill, a practice lockdown, a secure in place. Though that's the requirement. They're supposed to document them, and then after they have their drill, they meet as their team to say, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what do we need to tweak in our plan, so that they're constant, that's a living document. It's not something that they've done in the fall and it sits on the shelf hoping they never need it again. So we have been asking to make sure that they're doing them. We know that they do the two definite ones when the fire department comes, so we keep saying that's not enough, you need to make sure that we're documenting them. So we've been reinforcing that with everybody, those things need to be happening, because students need to know what to do and how to get out of the building, because God forbid you're walking your normal way, and that's where the fire's coming, or that's where the intruder may be, and you need to know how to get out in alternate ways. So they are practicing those. They did a few that were due around the time of the Parkland, they did cancel because we didn't want to agitate the environment at the time and make people think something was really going on in the community. So they are now back on, and they've started to do their spring drills.
If I may, I'd like to ask Lieutenant Burke to kind of give us a little bit of what we have to look forward to for the upcoming year, if you don't mind, sir.
Is he gonna address the issue of what training's coming up? Because I'm not sure, you feel like your question was fully
I
answered?
think that would be great, because, again, the parents who are coming to me are very anxious, and a work in progress, when it comes to safety, I think is very anxiety-provoking. So to be able to hear some tangible plans about what, even an overview of what is coming up, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, and so, just for the, to make sure we get everything we need, Lieutenant Burke explained to us what we got coming up, but I think what would be produced is yeah, you can do there, a training schedule with who's being trained at what time, all that stuff, that is not jeopardizing safety by putting it public-facing.
It's also a concern.
That's the piece that's kind of important. Some stuff we don't want to let people know.
If I may,
You can tell one-on-one with parents, but you may not want
Right.
to tell.
excuse me, if I may, that packet that we made available to you, the crisis plan, that is for your eyes only, please.
That we just said. And I know you did say work in progress, but I'm going to tell you, safety is always a work in progress, because there's always something new coming up that you need to now add into your plan or your protocols, because things are happening that we've never seen happen before anywhere in the world. So it's always, even though you say work in progress, it's not that we don't have things in place, but you always have to keep current with what's happening and have new plans put in place.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no
Sean.
question.
Lieutenant Burke?
Well, good evening. My name is Sean Burke. I'm a lieutenant, obviously, with the Lawrence Police Department. I am a product of Lawrence Public Schools my whole life, and I am a 1987 graduate of Lawrence High, proud graduate. I was honored to be selected by Chief Vask to come back to a place where I've spent most of my career working with the children and the staff of Lawrence Public Schools. And first of all, I just want to make it clear that Chief Vask has really outlined steps that we are going to take to improve our response and our preparation, and also steps that we're hoping to assist you with. So he's made that very clear. If you've ever heard him speak, he makes it very clear that the safety of the students and the staff of the City of Lawrence are his utmost priority. So with that in mind, and I'll try to answer your questions, when he assigned me here, he gave me the duty of assessing us as a police department, what we do as far as an SRO unit, what we do in response, what we do in education. So it's a wide realm of things that I'm looking at. He also gave me the chore of working with the district, working with the superintendent, with the committee, to look at how we can assist you with improvements that have to be made. Some of the information that I may have from some of the things that I've been lucky enough to do in my life, to impart it with the school district and see how we can work from here to improve things. As the superintendent said, that it's an ever-evolving issue. As far as training, I don't think you will ever meet anyone who is more training conscious than myself. I believe that training is an essential part of everyone's job. And when I go out and I instruct some of the educators, the unfortunate part is that when educators went to school, they thought of, I have to teach the arithmetic, I have to teach the ABCs, I'm going to learn this. And when I was watching TV and I went to the police academy, I thought of turning on the blue lights and catching the bad guys and running, well, in my younger days running. But now our jobs are very similar. We have to deal with social problems that kids are having. We're just not law enforcement. They're not just educators. We have to work together. So that's kind of where we come from to prepare. As far as a response or a preparation or prevention of anything, training is very important. We have to look at training. We have to look at practicing what we train, because under stress, you are only going to do what you've practiced to do. So I could sit here and teach a class, but unless we practice it, we're not going to do it under stress. That's why police officers go after many, many of hours of shooting, of trying to handcuff, fighting, running, and that's all in preparation for when your body is under stress. We can take the Parkland shooting as an example. They had a lockdown and they had a fire drill. Well, for 100 years, every teacher knows that when the fire drill goes down there, I go out my door to the right. Well, that's the unfortunate part, is that there was a lockdown. Some of the teachers did decide to go out. They were back in the classroom. So when we look at training, we have to look at giving people the core concepts and the ability to make conscious decisions under stress. So that's mainly where I see a lot of this training going, preparing teachers for hopefully something that never comes, and giving them the tools to think independently, to just not follow a script, to say, these are my core components that I have learned. So if the fire alarm does go off at the lockdown, I'm going to look out the window. If I see no fire, I see no smoke, but I hear gunfire, I'm not bringing my kids out there. So that's where we like to have the core competencies come in as far as training. And as far as specific training, maybe not something that we mention in an open forum, but to assure the parents, I will have recommendations for training. I will assist them. I will teach it. My SROs will teach it. We have some great officers in the police department that can assist us, and we have some great people in the school department that are going to be assisting. So I think, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great program. And like I said, you have our full support, and we'll be part of it however we can.
Thank you. That's very reassuring. Thank you.
And I'm sure we can get you to do something for parents who might want to know a little bit more about how we handle things.
Definitely a very important part on what role they play in an emergency.
Dr. Rivera?
Lieutenant Burke, thank you for that presentation. Given your training and your background, I really value your opinion, and tonight during the budget hearing, we spoke of a couple of the schools not having any safety officers present. What is your professional opinion on that? And is there, if there's supposed to be a school safety officer staffed at every building, is there a certain ratio of students to safety officers?
Well, I think that goes, it goes per district. If you look around the country, most districts now have a set of non-sworn safety personnel that they use as intermediaries between education and law enforcement. And I think it's a fantastic program. So there is no set number. I can't tell you for every 1,000 kids or for every 1,000 students there should be a safety officer. What I can tell you is that they are a great resource. You have someone there dedicated to that. Obviously everyone is concerned about it from the principal down to every teacher, but unfortunately they have other duties. So that's not always the focus, and nor should it be. But if you do have a dedicated safety person there, that is great. I think what it does come down to the budget is how much you want to invest. And if you could have one at every district, I'm sure every parent would love it. If it's something that you don't, then those are where the decisions have to be made.
Anyone else? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
I just have a question for the staff. I know last time there was a father here that was really concerned about the door at the South Lawrence East School. Can we talk about that for a bit? Sure. I know he's not here tonight, but I just want to make sure we get it on the record on what we're talking about, what happened. I know you guys have video, all this stuff.
Since then, the door has been fixed. There has been a sign posted on the door stating the hours of operation of the school, and if they have difficulty accessing entry to the school, they have a phone number to call, and someone will assist them.
But we did verify it is a handicap accessible door, which means there is a 20-second lag to make sure that a wheelchair can get out. So if you are leaving and you don't push it closed, it will take 20 seconds to close because of ADA compliance law.
Do we have a video on that door? Or a camera on that door?
I actually took one this morning when I went by to double check and make sure everything was running as it should. I'm not sure how I'll be able to put it up on the screen, but I
But there is
can
video out there.
definitely show it to you guys afterwards. We can send it.
I don't want it. I just want to know that because of that 20-second lag, we can know everybody who goes through that door. There's a recording or some type of video.
And they did send something out to parents reminding them that there is a lag, so that if they are the last one out, I know I do it all the time over there, I make sure it closes behind me when I'm leaving. So
But
we're
I-
asking them to do the same.
What I can also tell you is there is a security camera that points right at the main entrance. So if anybody walked out and leaves the door open, the safety officer will be able to see that from his desk, and he can address the issue. Yes.
So,
I think was it. Go ahead.
as a positive, I
Stuart?
just wanted to say I was able to follow up with that parent, and they did report that there have been improvements, and they are feeling more comfortable, so thank you for that.
Thanks. Any other questions? Dr. Rivera?
So you had mentioned earlier, Dr. Bergeron, that there's a packet that goes home at the beginning of the school year that talks about, all the safety procedures and things like that. But I just wanted to add, because there tends to be a communication gap and a cultural gap, that in addition to those packets, are there any sort of orientation events or, because there's different modes of learning, right? Not everybody's literate, you know what I mean? And at the same time, too, some people prefer face-to-face. Are there other trainings or other sort of events where these types of discussions are?
Every school has an open house in the beginning of the year, whether it's September or October, depending on the start date. They go over those things with their parents that are coming in. They do them at PTO meetings. Sometimes they do them in the morning and afternoon, depending what their parents are asking for their meeting times. So they do them over various points, but we probably could do a refresher mid-year, because sometimes you get so used to what you're doing, you don't think about refreshing it. So we can put that together and make sure that we do another reminder at like mid-year, just reinforcing.
Yeah, that would be great, just for reassurance of our families, because I know there's a lot of anxiety right now about safety. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you, we're very fortunate. Our students are amazing in terms of reporting things. So when you tell kids, if you see something, say something, our kids say something. And it's a credit to them that they've learned that, because they want this to be their safe place.
So, thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for coming. I just have one quick question. I know we had an incident about a week and a half ago about a student at the Lawrence High School saying he was going to shoot up the place and all that. What are the guidelines that we have for the teachers, for example? Like, do we have a message that gets sent to all the teachers in the school when a threat like that is made? Or is it, because from what I heard was some teachers just got emails instead of real time, like an alert letting them know, like, go into lockdown? Or what are the guidelines moving forward? And how can we fix that?
According to the crisis plan, in case of any threat to the building, we will go into a lockdown. But if the incident you're referring to, I'm not sure I want to speak on this in the public, but we have specific details. The school was never in danger. The person never came into the building. The incident didn't happen inside the school. It happened outside of the school. It was a couple staff members approached the person who they have a relationship with. That student is not a student that physically comes to the school. So basically, that person wasn't going to be able to come in at all. But like I said, those are the details that I would rather discuss outside of a public hearing.
I thank you. It makes more sense because from the details that I received, I didn't know that the student was outside of the school. They made it seem like he was inside of the school, but clarification, thank you.
Anything else?
Safety? No?
Thanks.
Can I just add one, I think, important factor? I've heard a lot of talk about our safety officers, our school resource officers being part of the community. The majority of our school safety officers also live within the community and have very close relationships with our students. And I think that one of the things to address Ms. Suarez's points is, I think one of the things that our safety officers are actually very skilled in is building relationships with our students and forging those relationships, and they are key in helping us prevent incidences. The information that our students come forward with, to repeat what Mary Lou said, it bears repeating. Those personal relationships that are built with the school safety officers and our students, and the knowledge that's brought forward, and then being able to relay that knowledge to our school resources officers, put us in a very good position to be preventative. And that's what CPI is all about. It's about crisis intervention. And that's the skills that we train our school safety officers on, which is different than how police necessarily interact. So I just want you to let you know that those officers on your, that are in our schools every day, the majority of them live in the community as well.
Yeah, the one at the Oliver Partner School is actually the Cub Scout master for the,
Yep.
for the kids at that school.
Many of them do intramurals
I
or
was just gonna
coach
say
in
that, the
addition to
coach.
their work that they do, yes. Okay. Well, thank you,
Anything
Mr.
else?
Hernandez.
All set? As we transition on, I think it's important to note that with us in the audience is Stephanie Infante, Greater Lawrence School District Committee woman.
Greater Lawrence.
She's joining us here with that.
Also on our
Thank you for being here.
MSBA.
It's
Huh?
right on
Also
the
on our
MSBA.
Oliver Partnership Board.
She's also on the Oliver's Partnership Board Building Committee. Thanks to the City Council.
Okay. So we'll transition now to school nutrition. We try and get away from school lunch program, we're Nutrition Services Department, because we're about healthy foods. So we're inviting Carol Noonan up, who's been overseeing our nutrition services, as does Anne Marie Stronach. So we'll let them take charge.
Good evening, school committee members. I want to thank you for the opportunity for being able to present here tonight. Our goal is to, we have a presentation here, a PowerPoint, and our goal is to share this information and enhance it so that family, school groups can share it with parents at their workshops. It can become a tool for staff and families to keep them updated on the Nutrition Service Department. It's a work in progress right now, and we plan on translating it as needed for the schools. And we can show the presentation.
My name is Rosemary Martin. I'm here at the Lawrence High School. I'm the head cook. Each day they have at least 5 options to pick. We follow our menu, but we also incorporate in there the tuna. We have some butter every single day, and we also have salad every single day. So besides the cold, they also have our hot meals because we have some vegetarians, so we make them food also. There should be 5 components in your tray, and you can pick 3 out of those 5. Milk, protein, vegetable, grain, and fruit. This guideline is by the USDA. If they pick, for example, a pizza, there's a protein and the bread, so that's 2. So if they want, they have to pick another one. Could be the vegetables or the fruit or milk, and they should be all set. One of the requirement components that they need to have is a fruit or vegetable, so they need to walk out with one of those. A basic day here at the Lawrence High School is breakfast. We serve around 800 to 900 kids in the morning. Then for lunch, we have between 25 to 2,600 kids a day. And we also are serving here at the high school, we're serving dinner, which could go from 250 to 300 each day.
The Nutrition Service Department is responsible for serving students with a universal free breakfast program. We have a 51% participation rate for breakfast, with an average daily count of 7,382 breakfasts served. Our lunch program runs at about 75% on daily participation, with the average daily lunch count being 10,724. We also have an after-school snack program, which averaged 2,147 daily. We also supply a dinner program at Lawrence High School, which serves 230 kids average on a daily basis. The Nutrition Service Department is funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the USDA establishes regulations and guidelines, and we are monitored by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We have many partners. One of our partners are UMass Extension Nutrition Education Program, which provides nutrition education to schools throughout Lawrence. Greater Boston Food Bank is one of our partners, and we run a monthly mobile market that is available to all Lawrence Public School children. Project Bread assists us with our summer meals program, and the EOS Foundation assists us with the breakfast in the classroom in various schools throughout the city. We have 9 head cooks, 71 CAF workers, 39 lunch aides, and about 48 breakfast monitors throughout the city. We also have 15 nutrition service substitutes. Those staff members are able to serve 19,000 meals on a daily basis throughout the district. The USDA has made professional standards for nutrition staff workers. There's a mandatory amount of hours that they must complete each year. Staff members must complete 6 hours of professional development. Managers must complete 10 hours of professional development. The topics they are offered are Serve Safe, Allergen Awareness, First Aid, CPR. We are partners with Mass Terry, and we have a Making It Count video, which offers meal pattern training, allergy training, production record training, and accountability. All of this training helps our staff become more knowledgeable in order to serve the students within the district.
We're Gators, and the food is really good.
There's any questions?
I'm going to ask this question, not that when I eat food this matters to me so much. Does it actually taste good?
I believe it does, yes.
We sure?
For sure.
All right.
We have kids coming into Lawrence High School actually thanking them for a great meal.
I think I only asked that, kind of only tongue in cheek. I think that where the level of what's good and what's great and what's, it's by individual, but I just want to make sure that that's a question we ask too. When I was in the Army, there was mess halls where they would serve battalions of soldiers, and you could get a full belly. And then there was other ones that served the same number of battalions of soldier, and you felt like, I can't miss a meal there because those people, they take their time. And so I think I got to figure that there's a range across every one of the kitchens we have in the schools, and if there's a mechanism for you guys to see which ones are feeding everybody and which ones are feeding everybody that everyone's like, did you have lunch today? And I think that's the question that's on the table by the parents, is that where are we in that continuum? Are we mostly all just feeding people, or are we feeding people so that the kids feel like there's it can't be the highlight of their day, because hopefully the classroom experience is the highlight of their day. Although if you're a hungry kid, this probably is the highlight of your day.
Well, the guidelines, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure that that's the continuum we're talking about.
Sure.
It is clear that you guys do a lot of work, so.
I have to respond to that.
We're going to let her first?
Yes, but I absolutely need to.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the guidelines, we are an offer versus serve model, and we have to offer the 5 components at lunch. Students are only required to take 3. They can take up to the full 5, but if they see something they don't want, they don't take it. So as long as there's those 3 components on the tray, at lunchtime, that must be a fruit or a vegetable. And we offer the fresh fruit daily, we offer other fruits daily, fresh cut vegetables along with cooked vegetables. So they have options in those departments.
And is there, you know what, I'm going to offer myself up. I mean, maybe I should go do a tour at lunch at one of the
Yeah,
grammar
love to.
schools and then most of the high school.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe the one more busier places, because I think I'm always looking for what's an indicator of whether or not we're doing it right. And so if it's a 5-choice process and I can ask and I can choose 3, are they choosing 3 things that you guys don't cook? Are they choosing 2 things that, are they choosing the fruit and the packaged thing over the stuff that's cooked? As in an indicator, and I don't know how you do it over time, how much of those things are thrown away or recycled or given up. But I'm going to reserve saying that stuff so I go through and see what that looks like, because I think you should have some type of indicator that says that piece of it. And then the last thing that I'm going to go to Dr. Rivera. Do you feel like it's flexible enough, the program as administrated by the federal government and whatever the state guidelines are, to be culturally inclusive? Do you feel like you have that flexibility to say, introduce a plantain or rice?
We serve
that's not
yuca.
that's not rice pilaf.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
We serve plantains, we serve yuca fries. Yep.
You got yuca fries?
Yeah, we do.
Can we go there first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I walk through?
I
Emery?
also wanted to say that for our main entrees, there's never only one choice. There's always a minimum of 3 choices,
Okay.
even in the elementary, middle schools.
Thank you. First of all, I do have to say that nutrition service is, I oversee a lot of departments, but this is my love. And I have to say that publicly to you all. This is something that I absolutely agree with the mayor. It is a very subjective, and we do have a wide variety of kitchens. And I would say to that not all of our kitchens are as inviting as others. And so when I think about our school districts, we have 21 schools within our district, 31 schools. But I think of the kitchens as in a sense of complexes. So one of the things, the reason we worked on this video was because we wanted to give you shots, not just of Lawrence High, because Lawrence High is a flagship, right? I mean, if I talk to the Lawrence High kids, that program is probably one of the best high school programs in the Merrimack Valley. I say that to you because I've gone to other schools and I know what they're doing in terms of their cafeterias and their high school levels. But what I would say to you is, we picked the Tarbox School, we picked the Oliver School, we picked the Arlington School to have you take a look at. The food prep is similar, and we worked with, we had chefs come in, we do plate waste studies, we, do all of those things. But unfortunately with food, there's not gonna be a day where I'm gonna make every single person happy. I have 2 kids. One of them loves school lunch. The other one would not have touched it if I paid him to eat school lunch. But they were going to the same schools. So, it's very subjective. And what I can tell you is that the environment also is impactful of the eating. And if we have a school like the Tarbox School, which is over 100 years old, and they're eating in the basement, and the cafeteria is very small, and it's not very bright, and, we do our best to do the paint and all of those things, they're not going to have the same experience as somebody who is eating at the Arlington School, where it's a full-fledged cafeteria. And I think that plays into your comment on terms of the spectrum. There's absolutely a difference in the food. And I would say that we address the staff regarding how they're presenting their food. And the reason I feel that I have to speak to this is because, unfortunately, our nutrition service director, Gary, is out right now, so I don't want Carol to feel like she's being put on the hot spot, because we've been doing this work for a long time, and we're constantly going into the schools, not just looking for compliance, because we're spending a lot of time and effort. And if you go and talk to your cafeteria staff, nothing disheartens them more than spending all that time and energy prepping a meal, because it is a lot of hard work, and then not having the kids eat it. They want those kids to eat. So their goal is not just to get the food on the trays, and it is about getting the kids to eat what they present. And I think they take a lot of pride in their work. And I know that on the screen we talked about what the mission statement is of the department. The mission statement of this department is to foster lifelong eating habits. And that is really what's at the center of this. And there are some kids, I think back to I'm going to say about a year and a half ago, I was at a PTO meeting at the FRC, and a parent was upset because we were serving broccoli, and her kid doesn't eat broccoli. And I get all that, but we're trying to introduce them to many, many different vegetables, and we try as hard as we can to be culturally appropriate. The one thing I would say is we do not use we do, I guess our biggest issue with that is using butter and frying and those kind of things. So there are some tastes that we're never going to replicate. I'm not going to be able to replicate the meals that I cook at home either here in the school lunch program. So to that end, Mr. Mayor, I think you are right that there is not always the flexibility within the guidelines to get the meal that may be as attractive as they could get outside of school. So I know that that was pretty long-winded, but I just had to say it.
Seems like you're passionate about it. And Carol, we would never make you feel like you're out there all by yourself. We're in this together.
Great.
Dr. Rivera.
Thank you. I just wanted to, advocate for some sort of assessment, a closer assessment in terms of the children who aren't being satiated by whatever's served at lunchtime, because my worry is that, many of our students are living in poverty, and so the food that they get at school is probably like the only food that they're going to get during the day. If we're going to provide an environment that's going to foster learning and improve academic achievement, we have to make sure that every single child is fed and is fed well so that they can sit and attend, to a lesson. So I have heard complaints in terms of the discrepancies between meals served at different schools, because some schools, they have full kitchens and others they don't. The cafeteria at the Rollins is really scary. It looks like a dungeon. But I have personal experience as a parent who, my son's not a picky eater, but he didn't really like any of the foods presented to him within the district. And so in visiting other local school districts, there is even a discrepancy between the schools, that have free lunch programs, the foods that are being served there compared to what's being served here. And I just really want to advocate for some sort of assessment, just to make sure that all our kids are being fed well during the school day.
And so that plate waste study sounded like a good place to go to start, or whatever you have on file for those. The other thing that I will say too is that I would encourage the staff to see this as us having a conversation about how we move the needle on this. And so if a parent feels like their kid, or a group of parents in one particular school feels like their kids are not being satiated, or they're not, maybe the food's just not appropriate, not culturally, just the kids aren't going, they're going hungry, or they're not eating what's being made there, then we got to drill down on that and figure out why that is. And the best, and it's not always going to be just food allergy. It's not always going to be just, oh, I've never eaten broccoli before. I only say that because again, in the college setting, you feel like the food's never good enough. But you tell your parents, and your parents are like, that's good enough. It's what we have at the house. I mean, you're right. And so if you get a group of parents, I think it's an indicator that something may be amiss, and it just might be not showing up on anything that the staff is looking at. So I'm looking forward, we can get, I think you guys called it a plate waste study? Plate waste study, and just to see what we can get from that information. And, because I like to do like the bottom problems, and we don't have to figure out all the school all at one time, try to figure it all out. But if there's one particular building that has one particular problem about the setting, about the content, we can go at that and support Carol. And who's the other guy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's the other guy? And the director, who's the director?
Gary Watts.
And Carol and Gary, support them in getting that bottom one to move the needle up. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out.
So then if you're getting complaints, it would be good to know where they're coming from, right? Because right now they're general. But if there's like one or two schools that you think you're hearing from mostly, that would be useful.
And I would also just like to say that in terms of the space that we're feeding, and I'll use the Rollins because you mentioned that, there's, other than eating in the classroom, which I totally am not supportive of, I want to know that prior to us building what was in those, that's what was in those schools prior. So I realize that it's not ideal, but eating in the classroom would be less ideal. And the temperatures of the foods and things like that going up to the classroom would be exacerbated. So I do recognize that, but I don't know how to go about fixing those kind of problems. So I would welcome your feedback on that in terms of fixing those kind of issues as well.
Luckily for you, we got a lot of ideas.
Yes, we do.
Ms. Stewart.
So, in addition to the plate waste study, do we have any historic or baseline data around what students are eating, what they like, what they don't like? Do we have any, data from the past year about, like a consumer satisfaction, survey or student survey around? And of course, you are going to get those kids who say, no matter what, they don't like it. And then the other question I would add to that is, are we surveying our parents as well so that we can hear the stories? Are parents able to say, well, my kids aren't eating? How are we including the community in these discussions around food? And then my second question is, who is the vendor who's providing the food for the district?
We have
Okay,
several
before you answer that, can I just say this, no is a good answer? Like, no, we don't have the study?
Yeah.
And the second piece of it is just, did you write down those questions? Because it seemed like there was 3 or 4 of them, and I just want to make sure you, because.
And I apologize, I tend to do that, so I apologize.
That last one was a very important one.
Yes.
And it's a long one, so
Okay.
can we hold the last one till they
Let's
do the
hold the
first
last
one?
one.
Because the last one's a real big one. There's a lot of vendors. Go ahead.
So we would welcome the parents to come in. I know that several schools, some parents come in for breakfast with their kids and stay, especially with the younger children. So we would love to have that. We also work with UMass Nutrition Extension, and they have been able to do taste tests when new products come about. So that gives us an indicator of what they want and what they don't want.
We have not done a parent survey on school lunch, I don't believe.
No, we have not.
We have done student surveys.
We've done students, yes.
Student ones, but not adult, no, not parent ones.
Not parent, we've done student
Correct.
surveys on foods.
But do you guys have that still? I mean, if it was student ones, I gotta think it was paper-based.
We'd have to look into it.
I would prefer to do new ones if you're looking for that information. I wouldn't give you old data. I'd prefer to do new ones.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, so the last question was about.
On the first, is that okay with you? I mean, not having the old data, going for new data?
Yeah, new data is great.
Okay.
And then the last question, if it's easier to just email those, you can email me the vendors as well. I just was curious.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to the vendors as well. We are not a contracted food service in Lawrence Public Schools.
What does that mean?
What that means is we do not have a company contracting doing our food. We are a self-supportive nutrition service department. So our vendors, every year we go out for bid. We get the items that we need to purchase, and then we have a line item. So our bid document is probably, I'm gonna say about 50 pages long, and various vendors bid on various items. If we were a contracted food service company, you would have somebody like Ures, Sodexo, someone like that coming in and do it. We do not. All of our employees work for Lawrence Public Schools. They do not work for an outside vendor, and we are not paying a management fee to some company coming in and running our district. I actually came from a management company. That was my background many million years ago. So there's not one particular vendor. We have to bid out our food because we're subject to 30B just like every other procurement within the city. And we put out a standard of that food. So if you'd like a copy of the bid, that might be of more interest to you.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
You do one bid for all the things?
We have a miscellaneous food bid for every single food item that we serve. And because we serve so many meals, we have to put it out for every single item that we use, because you serve 10,000 chicken nugget meals, you go over $10,000 pretty
But
quickly.
if I did the bid, I could bid for the chicken nuggets and not worry about whether or not I can produce
Correct.
the ketchup, but
They
it's one
allow-
document?
Yep.
Is that good?
Does that address that question?
I think so. Yeah, that'll give the.
Yes,
the bid
thank you.
stuff. Okay. You're gonna give us the bid, but you're also gonna give us who got the bid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else? Mr. Gonzalez?
So I got a question about the food in regards, like, how does it compare to other districts? Like, for example, if Andover, do they follow the same, components as the USDA, just like
Yes.
Lawrence? Or
Yes.
do we just have a different method since we've been under receivership? Because a lot of parents, what I've heard is, before receivership, the food was great. They had different options, and ever since we got into receivership, like, it seems like it's cheaper and less of quality. So I just want to hear like more information about that, if possible.
I can answer
Do we
that.
have a cheap receiver? I mean, what's going on with that?
I'm going to let you answer it, but I will tell you that the guidelines have changed. So, I mean, we have, we don't use white bread, we don't serve chocolate milk. I mean, so there are some of those changes that have happened, but those were prior to receivership.
Took a while to get everybody on board with the whole wheat pizza crust, but actually, they've come to the point where it doesn't seem to bother them anymore. But it did take several years to get to that point.
But would you like to speak to that?
Yes, what was,
The quality.
Big change since the receivership.
well, I don't know if it's since the receivership, but I could say, once we became a CEP community, we are at the end of our 4th year now. We have had more money to spend on better food. We've improved the quality of our fruit and vegetables, the fresh ones. The apples aren't the minuscule apples anymore. They're a nice size for the kids. And we go to food shows and things all the time where the vendors show us what they have. And that all the communities around do that. So they're all offered the same food.
And they're all pretty much using all the same vendors too as well.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? So, if we could, I don't know when would work, I'd love to come through and watch an operation at a,
Anytime you're ready.
so,
You can go for
Yes,
breakfast, you can stay for lunch, you can stay for snack.
don't tell that to a fat guy. I'll never leave.
And
But so if you could pick 2 or 3 places that are 2 or 3 places that were different, we'll let you choose them, and then we'll figure out a date for us to go
Absolutely.
through. And then we'll work from there.
We'd love that. And we're happy to host any school committee members that would like to do that too. I know you know how to get a hold of me, so
Yeah.
call me and I will get you on the tour.
You guys gonna pick 3 places, then we'll figure out dates. All
You
right?
can pick the places.
No, we'll let you pick the places.
Okay.
All right, anything, other questions?
Okay.
All set.
Can I just lastly say, parents do have the ability to bring their own food into the district. Someone actually thought that that was not a possibility, and I just want to be clear that families can bring food into the district.
And I will tell you, remarkably from my special ed background, this group does an amazing job for kids who have food restrictions and making sure they go out and get the gluten-free product or the dairy-free products, and that they're accessible for children who are coming in to eat on a regular basis. Not just the allergy thing, but really making sure anything needs to be pureed or thickened for kids who can actually access it.
Absolutely. One other thing, you had talked about students who are starting the day out hungry. We have 13 schools in the district who have signed on to do breakfast in the classroom. So our participation level for the breakfast has gone from 35 to 51 over the past 2 years. So they start the day with a full belly.
And the nurses
And I don't know
always
that
keep a
I don't
little
know that we
extra.
did that with this school board, but last school board, you showed us what those in-classroom meals were, and I thought they were pretty cool.
Yep.
So I don't know, I mean, I think it was because we were starting out and you wanted us to see what they were.
It varies from year to year which schools participate, but we've been doing breakfast in the classroom. We were one of the pioneers on that, actually, so we've been doing it for probably about 9 years now.
And we have 9 schools being rewarded at the State House next month, so.
The rates.
Mr. Gonzalez?
I just got one question. Do the students still use IDs for their lunches? Is there any way to get information and relate it to the parents if if their child is not eating. I was at Lawrence Community Works last night, and I had a discussion with parents, and many of the kids show up home hungry, and they haven't eaten school lunches, and the parents don't know about it. Is there a way to maybe track if they're eating or not and relate it to the parents so they could just sit down with their kids and talk about it?
Absolutely. I actually have requests from principals who are having a meeting with a parent, and the parent says, well, my kid was here, they told me they ate, they told me they didn't eat. We can print out exactly what days they eat or don't eat.
They would have to request that, though, in order for us to tally that on
Right.
it every day for every student would be an enormous task.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
They can call.
absolutely.
One thing I am proud of, and I do think that Lawrence did a lot of work at the state level and at the national level to allow us to move away from a reduced price meal. So, and again, you know, this happened under receivership where we were able to remove the reduced meal price. And now we have universal free lunch for everyone. So all of our kids not only eat breakfast for free, but they eat lunch for free too. And that is an enormous accomplishment, and you all should be very proud of that, because I can tell you that we worked very long and hard on that, and it was my goal to remove that stigmatism of, because to me, that was the most difficult group. I mean, those are really the working poor who were affected by that. So that's an accomplishment. I think we're in year 4 now of that, and that's something that we really hold our head high about. It's great.
We're actually reapplying for the next 4 years right now, so.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
As we transition, I just want to take note that City Councilor at Large Pavel Payano and former school committee members with us in the audience. Thanks for joining us.
All right, and our last agenda item, thank you. Our last agenda item was a request to just do a quick overview of the Lawrence Teachers Union contract. I believe Anne Marie gave you each a copy of it as well as the overviews. So she's just going to do the highlights.
I feel like it's the Anne Marie show. I'm happy to sit down if you'd like.
Never get tired of it.
Okay. So we're really excited that we were able to get a settlement agreement with the teachers union. And I would like to publicly thank the mayor, because I know that he did some behind the scenes work with the teachers union to make sure that we were able to cross the finish line with this. And I will tell you that we have also, this school year, finished 2 other contracts. I just want to throw that in there because one of them is the cafeteria workers, and we're pretty excited about that. We've been waiting a long time to get that one across the finish line. And the other is the school safety officers, which is also the second contract under receivership for that group. And I guess what I am most excited about with this agreement, and I've given you, I'm not going to read this overview for you, you can read the executive summary, is that this maintains school autonomy, and more importantly, maintains the teacher voice. We have established in this summary, in this contract, some working groups that are going to be moving forward. They're going to address the advanced and master teacher. They're going to address the teacher leadership teams at the school level, and they are going to address the evaluation system. So all of we'll be having some subcommittee groups with them, and then bringing recommendations forward to improve the systems that we have in place. But I guess what I'm most proud of is the fact that the teacher voice that we have begun to work on at the school level is really being reinforced with this contract. And the other thing that I'd just like to highlight is that this was a very unique way to do the contract. This was not a percentage. It was based on the career ladder model, which most of you are familiar with now. If you're not, the document's there for you to read it. But we did look around at the surrounding communities, and we adjusted in those steps. I call them ladder rungs, but in those steps or those rungs, whichever you want to call it, to make ourselves competitive moving forward and competing with the surrounding communities. So I'm pretty excited to get this across the finish line, and we got the receiver, the overseer, the city's overseer to sign this yesterday, so this is hot off the press for you all. It is in the process of being printed and will go out to all of the staff within the next couple of weeks. It is going to take us some time to get a copy and bound for them. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll also add, I'm pretty sure that some of people already got some of the checks.
Oh, we've already implemented this in last payroll. So the retro did go back to July 1, so that has already taken place. Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? I mean, there's a lot of, the document is big, the executive study summary.
I
The
tried
things
to
that
get it to
the
one
things- The things that
page.
I want to note is, this, although it went by fast, I think, they did take 11 sessions. And the important part is, because I always like to say that we have educational innovation and we have a union, which a lot of people like to say it's not, that those two things don't exist together anywhere. But I think that that's part of the reason why we're having some success is that you do have both a collective bargaining agreement. And they, part of the receivership did not have to honor the fact that there was a collective bargaining unit. I know it wasn't easy through the first parts as you try to figure out their way, but I think if we get the teacher groups back together, I think it could put this thing back on its good footing. But it passed, so people are happy.
Well, with that said, while I thank the mayor, I have to call out Frank McLaughlin, who is our union president, who, at the end of the day, when people were talking at the swearing-in ceremony of the new commissioner, Jeff Riley and Frank McLaughlin were able to get things done and really move the needle for this community in a way that is meaningful. And this document, moving forward, solidifies that work and gives us a baseline to move forward. So, again, and Frank advocated very hard and worked diligently to get that teacher voice at the forefront of this contract. And I think he was able to do that again this time along with his team. So I want to thank them for their work because it is not easy doing that at the table.
How many teachers do we have?
1,232.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
That's the end of our agenda items. So if there's something else that we have questions on, or we need to clarify, or?
I just want to see, I had a question that I'd like to see maybe just an email on. I don't have to bring it back to public, to a public session. The framework talks about 3 different types of schools: high autonomous, wide latitude, intensive support. Can you just shoot an email with how many schools are in each and which ones are?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Mrs. Mariano.
Dr. Bergeron, on that note, I'm very interested in the community day. And is there any way that at a future meeting, they could come and explain their structure to us?
We can talk with them about that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, you want to entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, seconded, in discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Have a good night.